said that, Keegan Eisenstadt, and thank you very much.
Well, I must say that for our little community, I am very proud that there are so many of us interested in this topic. There are quite an abundance of you here. I'm excited to see so many young faces. I'd also like to thank the World Affairs Council and the Montana Sustainable Business Council, of which my company is a proud member. And all of you for deciding to spend a few hours with us today. Hopefully, we will not only confuse you, but also clarify a few things along the way. Just to clarify, is the format questions after each talk or at the end?
We will have each of the speakers give a presentation, and then we will open this up to questions at the end.
Okay, great. So that means I'm first, which means everybody will forget their questions by the time we get to the end, which is to my advantage. How many people here have never heard of cap and trade? Anyone? A few? Yeah, it's sort of in the news a lot these days, cap and trade. I think in the discourse about climate change, there is a great tendency to talk about large generalities, and there's a great tendency to oversimplify, a great tendency to analyze a piece of the puzzle in isolation and not in context, and then present your information as though it has veracity for the whole. Now that maybe didn't make a lot of sense. I guess the most important message to take home right now is that today and the next 6 months is a time of transition for our entire country and hopefully for the entire world. There have been numerous meetings leading up to what is hopefully going to be a somewhat significant United Nations climate change meeting in Copenhagen in December. These meetings have been all over the world with all of the different government delegations represented. The US, for the very first time, actually has a policy dialogue occurring in both chambers, House and Senate, about what climate change and what our response could look like. That's pretty new. We're all concerned about the future of our planet. The scientific debate, and we have a preeminent one in the audience today, who's casually cooling his heels over there. The rest of us are in the hot seat. The scientific debate really ended 8 years ago. A lot of people don't recognize that. There's been a lot of discourse, there's a lot of misinformation, there's a lot of people that are talking about how climate variability happens and glaciers have melted and dinosaurs have gone extinct and why is now any different? The scientific community has basically said the rate of change is, the signal of the change is so far outside of the normal static background noise that it's an indisputable scientific evidence. I won't say truth, but indisputably all of the scientists agree. Now scientists are kind of a conservative bunch. They don't like to actually stand up in front of anybody and advocate anything. Yet all of them have. And they've said, it's time to act. We believe safe thresholds for greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere are somewhere in the 350 parts per million range. We are currently in the high 380s, currently. So what does that mean? That means it's time to act. I feel adamantly that mitigation activities need to occur. Translating scientific certainty into political action has never been a foregone conclusion. And I think that's where we are right now. We struggle with the ability to communicate that all of us are part of the solution to this problem. In the news, in the discourse, everybody says this is a global problem. It's for governments, it's for large multinational industries, it's for big emitters, big polluters to try to solve. And the reality is, yes, that's true, but it's also for all of us. We are here currently as a society, a global society, through the sum cumulative total of all of our activity. By activity, I mean driving cars, flying planes from India to Montana. You have to offset that, by the way. And all of our activity, economic, oil, fossil fuels, coal, power, heat, cooling, all of those have greenhouse gas implications. Now, greenhouse gases are normal, right? We've all recently had a campaign that says CO2 is natural in the Missoulian. Anybody seen that? CO2 is natural? Okay. Cyanide and arsenic are too. You know, that we do need CO2. Anybody know, just off chance, what the relative percentage of CO2 in our atmosphere is? 0.03%. And without it, what temperature would the Earth's surface be if we had none? I think somewhere around minus 40. Minus 40. So we love our 0.03. We just don't want 0.04, right? Because then we end up significantly warmer. To sort of step to the side, I'm here to talk about mitigation strategies. So I'm sort of the ground-up approach. Missoula is an incredibly diverse and dynamic place, and I've been fortunate enough to find people interested in this issue who want to work with me. And my company is Missoula-based, and we design carbon offset or mitigating, creating projects around the world. We work in Panama, Argentina, Nicaragua, soon to work in Central Africa and the South Pacific, and also in the Bitterroot, and in Custer County in Montana out east. So we're working with different landowners to change how they do business as usual. And in order to make those changes, typically change costs something, whether it means you have to spend time and energy and money to learn new practices, or whether it actually means you have to invest in a new technology. The change that those actors make in order to more sustainably manage their resources is rewarded through the sale of a carbon offset that they create with our help. That sale then generates money that goes back to those resource owners, okay? I'm hoping that this doesn't sound too vague, but the cap in the cap and trade is our planet can withstand a certain amount of CO2 or climate change causing gases in its atmosphere without having some very serious changes occur. We have to cap the amount that human endeavor around the world emits into the atmosphere, which is essentially us disposing of our atmospheric garbage into the air. It's garbage we can't see, feel, taste, smell, but it's there, and we now know what it's doing, and it's our responsibility to try to bag that up and deal with it somehow. Take it to a landfill, have somebody deal with our garbage, just like we stopped throwing it in rivers years ago, because we knew it was bad for us, public health issue, same scenario. By working at the cap, you then start trading what parties can emit how much carbon within that is still under the cap. So, and the cap ratchets down over time. So ecologically, you end up having less pollution in the atmosphere over time. Does that sort of make sense? Okay, so what does that look like on the ground? And we design carbon offset projects as a company. There are members here who are managing and designing the policy dynamics of how the markets work. And then there are also, we're going to hear from people who are talking at international policy discourse levels. But on the ground, just to give you an example that's homegrown, this week we just are in the midst of finalizing a deal with a dairy in Stevensville. Hull's Dairy. Anybody know Hull's Dairy? Anybody drink their milk? Nice. Really revolutionary dairy. And what they have just done is invested a fair amount of money of their own funds in an anaerobic digester. So that means there's a bunch of bacteria in huge tanks. They scrape all of the cow manure, they collect it, they put it in these tanks. Bugs, bacteria, work on all of the manure, and the methane comes out of that process. Methane goes, it's natural gas. Methane is burned in a generator set, and it makes power that they sell to the Ravalli County Electric Co-op. That's poo to power, literally. The two offsets that come out of the Hull's Dairy's poo to power, I don't know if there's a more sustainable approach. They get nutrient-rich water that is squeezed out, put in their old lagoon that used to house all of their manure. That lagoon now pressure feeds their irrigation system, so the crops are still grown with nutrient-rich water, but all of the greenhouse gases have been used to make power. The solids that the cows ate ends up as afterburner boost compost that you guys can buy at Cenex in a bag now as a soil amendment. That's the triple bottom line approach. That's what a restoration economy that is focused on taking advantages of the opportunities that a carbon market and a sincere response to global climate change is going to take. But with every crisis is an opportunity.